Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Seech from Small Town Monsters. Yes, this is absolutely epic to finally get a chance to once again sit down and try and figure out the madness known as the Dogman. Yet please, I must replenish and power up for midnight lycanthropy. Much better. Absolutely delicious. And I do appreciate the offerings. Without further ado, it is time for Brian Seech and LordeStarfox to venture into the madness of the Dogman phenomenon.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night. Yes, once again, you are tuning in to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. Brian Seech from Small Town Monsters. Yes, we've been on a roll. We had Heather and Aaron, and then Jamie, and now Brian. Well, he has decided to set up the late night fire for us so that we can burn the timber into the early hours and figure out what is happening all across the United States. Brian, my guy, how you been?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me tonight.
Appreciate you. Thanks for popping back in. I know you're a hella busy guy, yet it is always good to link up. So allow me to stay in the loop when you have more time. I definitely enjoy getting you back on for sure.
Yeah, thanks. And, my wife and I appreciate it.
Heck yes. And is she with you as well? And she's always welcome to sit down with us too.
Well, right now she's in the bedroom, but yeah, maybe next time she'll come and say a couple words. But yeah, she's heard me so much. She's like, she usually falls asleep when I'm talking if she's in the room.
Classic. That is awesome. Well, to the audience, Brian is, in my opinion, a legend, has an extremely large database of encounters with Dogman, Bigfoot, all kinds of cryptids. Brian, would you like to tell the audience who you are, what you do, and pretty much what intrigued you to start looking more into like the Dogman topic?
Yeah, so basically my wife Terry and I, we run two groups. One is the older group, which she runs now. It's a Center for Unexplained Events. We started that in 1986. Believe it or not, we've been doing this a long time. So when we formed that group, what we wanted to do is be a clearinghouse for all of the unexplained. Okay, not just Bigfoot. We do Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, everything underneath that umbrella. In 2012, we formed our newer group, which is the Center for Cryptozoological Studies. We felt by doing that, we would get more reports of all different kind of cryptids, not just Bigfoot. And it's worked. Getting more reports and exposure, about what we do, especially from Small Town Monsters, which Heather, Aaron, and all of the crew there, and Seth. and you just had Jamie on last week, I think. So um, I was able to film for two projects since I think since I talked. I think I talked to you in June of 2024, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think it was in July that Terry and I both filmed for Sasquatch Unearthed Mountain State Monsters. It was about here in West Virginia, and our episode was called. We were on all of them, but our episode was called "Season of the Sasquatch," where we got to they got to film down here at Tomlinson Run State Park, which we do Bigfoot research, and also we got the very first witness ever of the Bell Hill Beast to come on and talk about his encounter. And that encounter took place here in Hancock County, West Virginia, and it's been people know about it down here since the 80s, but no one's ever actually come out and actually said that they saw one. So we were able to get that on film. They filmed it for us, and just like about 2 weeks ago, Terry and I were down at Beaver Creek State Park, and they Seth filmed us for it's a new thing. It's called Bigfoot Decoded, and the one that we did was Lara the Sasquatch, and it was pretty cool. It was very cold that day, I should say, and there was snow coming down, and it just made a really good visual. When we were there, there was actually a park ranger that came and talked to us who was filmed too, and so if anyone here listening, if you get a chance, check that out. I think you guys will enjoy it.
Staying extremely busy for sure. You heard it. To the audience, all the links will be up. Brian did just drop some info where you can catch what he's been up to. Also, if you'd like to see him, I do know Tubi has some of the shows he's appeared on. Definitely check it out. He takes care of a lot of really intriguing aspects, whereas here I just tend to dive into prehistoric and modern day predator behaviors. Also, strange vocalizations, missing people in national forests and near cave systems, etc. Well, Mr. Seech and his wife definitely do a ton of outside of the spectrum of what I mentioned research. Yes, I do encourage you to check them out. I had some really interesting thoughts to ask you for quite a long time because you've had a chance to participate in a ton of investigations. And I know you and I last time spoke about the Shenango Valley Dog Boy, so that's obviously one of your cases that anyone who wants to hear this, go back and check it out in the playlist. Yeah, outside of that encounter or case, what are some of your favorite or scariest potential cases that you worked on that you think involved dogmen or werewolves?
Well, actually, we haven't gotten much lately. I'm trying to think here. We did get a report from this was about a year ago, but it was an older report, and it came from where I grew up in Beaver County, and it was kind of an interesting one because there was two witnesses to this, and I was able to speak to both of them. And so, just the short story on that is they were outside walking home through the woods. It was not quite dusk yet, but it was starting to get dark, and they had a big dog with them. Okay, and I kind of forget if it was I think it might have been a German Shepherd. Okay, so all of a sudden this German Shepherd looks up on the hill. They were walking, and there was a hill, it was in the woods, and all of a sudden this dog it went down on all fours. It starts shaking. It starts whimpering as it's looking up the hill. And all of a sudden, both eyewitnesses look up on this hill, and they said they seen what appeared to them as a giant wolf on two legs, standing there staring at them. So the encounter did not last very long. They said maybe the whole thing, maybe under a minute, maybe a minute, because the dog was shaking. It was looking up on the hill first, and they were looking at the dog and worried about their dog, and then they looked up and they see this thing. Well, this thing crested the hill, and of course they ran home. They were scared. This happened like years ago. It was an older sighting, but we just heard about it like last year. And of course, they come in, they come in and then they tell their dad about it. And well, it was two kids. The one kid told his dad. The other kid then just went home. But they both saw, the mom and dad saw that they were visibly shaken. But once they told them, hey, we saw this thing that looked like, I hate to use the term again, but a werewolf. And they kind of like brushed it off, like, yeah, right. Who you trying to kid? And there was something else that happened afterwards too. Something they heard some really weird noises, and a neighbor heard some really weird noises in the woods after the fact. So again, that was the only sighting that they actually had, but it really affected them. And the good thing is, when I interviewed the first eyewitness, and I said, hey, are you still in contact with your friend? And he said, yeah. I said, could I talk to him too? Because I talked to him also, like about a day later, and they both gave the same story. And you could tell in their voice, there was fear in their voice. It was like, there's no way it could be a werewolf, right? But why are we looking at something that looks like a giant wolf on two legs walking in the woods? Now that's what we hear when people talk about some of these sightings. They say, hey, it's almost like a disbelief. You could tell that they're telling the truth and they're upset and they're seeing things. And it's like, this thing looked like a werewolf. Some of them use the term Hollywood werewolf because that's what we associate werewolves with, basically, right? What we see on TV, the Hollywood type. But again, this doesn't make sense. And so there's another, I should say it's a potential case. And it also is in Beaver County. So, and apparently this eyewitness, these husband and wife came in and they told us about their friend who saw that, again, in Beaver County. I can't give the exact location yet because I don't know the exact location. But apparently she's seen this creature across the woods, across the road in the woods. And apparently at one time, there was even some men in military fatigues with guns that went into the woods. The eyewitness is like real reluctant to talk to us. And we're still working on it. It may take another 4 or 5 months to talk with her. But, sometimes you, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of secondhand stories, but when you try to pin the eyewitness down, they're elusive, and then they end up not wanting to talk. Even though we told them, hey, we're not going to give out the exact location, even when you tell us. We just say Beaver County, but we would like to come out, look around, interview you. But I tried to talk to the witness right around Christmas, or the husband and wife, and they said, well, she still doesn't want to talk yet. So another month or two, I'm going to message again. I'm going to be persistent at it because I really want to find out information on this case. But those are the last two cases that we've heard. When I was on the first time, I even said, hey, we don't get a lot of cases, and we don't. I think we maybe now 17, 18 now. And that's since 2007, our very first case. So we haven't been researching this that long. So, 2007 to 25, how many years is that? How many years would that be? Like 17, maybe 7. So 3 years to 2010, 10 to 25 is 15. Yeah, about 17 years, I guess. Wow. I didn't think so. I mean, again, we did get a report maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, even out of New York, where somebody said they were seeing this dog-like creature in the woods by their house. It's such an older case too that I would have to look up the specifics to give it to you. Not like I'm holding it. It's just like sometimes you forget. You know what I mean?
Of course. When you've been doing it for so long, I could see how you could potentially forget things or not have all the details just at the front of the lobe where you would like them in the filing cabinet, which is a big reason why I always try to just really dive into certain aspects that I feel knowledgeable about with the Dogman topic. And then I have other people on my science team that dive more into like the paranormal or maybe the demonic or extraterrestrial stuff, because I would love to hear your thought on this in a second. Yet I definitely personally believe There is a lot involved physically with real animals, whether they're prehistoric animals that never fully went extinct or modern day animals that have potentially evolved a little bit in good or bad ways from being let loose by people that might have had exotic animals per se as pets. When people are talking about like the Dogman, there's definitely a distinguishable difference between werewolf and dogman, which we talk about all the time because a werewolf is more of the paranormal, supernatural. If people would like, kind of label it a little more like that, the occult type aspects, still much different than the skinwalker, similar in the aspects of what you need to do to gain these powers per se. When it comes to the dogman, right? People say they have seen them quadrupedal, bipedal, up in trees, in groups, opening windows, having long human-like hands, arms, claws that look like squirrels or raccoons. All of this. Well, look at a baboon and different primate type species. They do have manes, they have glowing eyes, they're quadrupedal, they're bipedal, they have hands. They also are susceptible to disease like anything else and not healthy proximities with reproduction. They then could gain deformalities, which could make them maybe over aggressive now, patches of fur missing, and all of this such. Hyenas as well, because cave hyenas used to exist. We still think they do. Spotted hyenas definitely are being seen in this as well. Again, both of those are not canines, nor are bears and such like Bear Man. Yet I do believe there is an aspect. You had mentioned something where they said a short encounter where this large looking wolf type thing was standing up on two legs. A lot of people don't realize wolves do that. Any canine stands up for a bit, some more than others, but wolves particularly are known to stand up on their back legs and look over foliage and grass down on what they want to predate on. Per se, if people don't realize how large wolves are in general, but I like to say, go look at a Canadian jet black wolf. All right, look how huge those things are. Now imagine that standing up on its hind legs, looking over the grass at you. That is around 6 feet tall now, standing up on its two legs. You're not going to see its paws. Its paws are dangling down, so it's going to look like it has long, dangly arms. Wolves do have like a lot of extra fur potentially that could look manish. There you go. It's staring at you now. So the natural reaction is, oh my goodness, it had to be a bipedal wolf. Sure, at that point in time it was bipedal, but like you said, in that shorter encounter, no one sees afterwards when it just draws back down on all fours,
Yeah, the ones that we've pretty much taken, except for one was standing on its hind legs, and then it dropped down to all fours and it ran across the road underneath a fence to a substation in Westmoreland County. And most of the encounters that we get, they're on two, but they're running. They're not just standing; they're running or moving. And only, like I said, only the one did it drop down to all fours. Now, again, that's just the small percentage of cases that we've taken. So again, but like you said, there are plenty of cases out there where they dropped all fours also. So I always like to tell people, if I'm on interviews or podcasts, I'm usually talking about just the ones that we have encountered or read about. So, I know that's an incomplete picture at best.
Definitely a good way to make sure to approach the topic. It's just so interesting. That's what I mean about so many different potential variations. I just try to start with the logical aspects first before then stepping outside of the box and being like, all right, this needs to fall into a different category. Meaning, as you just said, if somebody swears up and down that they saw a giant wolf running on two legs consistently, well, now you actually have a scenario where they're seeing it run, but then sometimes people just see it standing per se for a second. It's so interesting. Where do you fall with the whole topic? Do you think there are multiple facets that are involved, like I had mentioned, or do you think it's one-sided, meaning that werewolves and dogmen are one and the same and that they have to be canine?
Well, here here's the thing. Somebody, there's a more like a kind of a growing theory out there too that these dogmen are just another species of Bigfoot, which I do not, I personally do not subscribe to that. If you put them together, any drawings, obviously we don't really have any definite pictures. One looks like a canid, and the other looks like an ape. I mean, other than them be covered with hair, covered with fur. I mean, I think they're pretty easy to distinguish. I don't think that they're a species of Bigfoot. If and people say, "What do you think it is? What do you think?" I'm like, well, my best guess, and again, like anything we do or we research, it's our guess, it's our guess, it's an opinion. Just from reading what we talking to the people and reading everything, they seem to be kind of a interdimensional type creature. And when you say that, people automatically think, "Oh, well, you don't think it's a flesh and blood thing." I'm like, I think it's a flesh and blood thing when it's here. Okay, same with some of these winged entities that we research. I I think what like say you would come down and visit and you walk outside and there's one running across the street. Yeah, it's it would leave tracks. When a lot of these cryptids I think are here, they do seem to be a flesh and blood animal. But and then my friend Fred Saluga always says his favorite saying is, "Where do they come from? Where do they go?" I think if they were out there all of the time, there would be a lot more sightings, a lot more people uh, talking about them. And again, I'm just going to go Ohio, PA, and West Virginia. So I don't want anyone to think I'm attacking anybody else's research in any other state. And just what we do, we basically do Eastern Ohio, Southwestern Pennsylvania, and the Northern Panhandle of West Virginia. So, but of course, have you ever talked to Barton Nunley?
That's all excellent stuff right there by you, my friend. I have never actually spoken to Barton.
You've got to try to get him on your show. You have to try to get him on your show. So, and ask him, and he'll tell you about the because I always use his sighting. Well, his eyewitness sighting. He didn't see it. I think this was in Kentucky where he lives. So that encounter goes, and I might have told you about this the last time. I don't remember. So there was a farmer in his field plowing his field, and he looks off to, I don't know if it's the left or right, and he sees a shimmer on his field in one small section of his field. And the best how you can describe that is if you're driving down the highway on a really hot day and you see that shimmer all the way, way in front of you. It's like an Eaton version or whatever it is. He said that's what he saw. He said a dogman stepped out of that shimmer. It looked like it sniffed the air and looked both ways, and it saw him. Okay. And once it saw him, he said it appeared to growl and it stepped back and it disappeared. Now, if that's not an interdimensional creature, I don't know what is. Now, again, that's one sighting. There may be a lot more. You may even know about a lot of them. But again, I'm just telling you about some of the sightings that we've read. Or there was even a Linda Godfrey who she's like the how do I say it? Like I can't say Godfather. The one of the primary who brought the Dogman phenomena out to all of us with their Beast of Bray Road in Wisconsin. Up until then, I had not heard anything about that. And we've been doing this a long time, and we hadn't really heard anything about that. That really kicked off a firestorm of sightings all over the country. So she had a sighting in PA that this creature was actually glowing. It looked like a werewolf type, but it was actually running in the field, and it was glowing. So again, I don't know if you've ever had any sightings like that or not.
That is really interesting stuff right there for sure. I know exactly the encounter you're speaking about with Linda. I would use terms personally like goated, meaning greatest of all time, or
yes,
or godmother, or etc. Because I would like to per se, give Jody the Godfather title. I mean,
Yes, exactly. I was just gonna say that. Exactly.
yeah, in my eyes, there we go with it. The goated, those two right there when it comes, especially to this topic we're diving into. That's great how you touched on that. And that's what I mean about categorizing it, making sure that, per se, like the cases you had mentioned and the ones that Linda had done and others that think it's more paranormal based or supernatural, we will definitely get it in the hands of people like Dennis Carroll and others that really specialize in that occult stuff. But then some of the other ones where they don't think it was paranormal, it was physical, and it's here. I feel pretty optimistic if I was able to sit down with certain guests, hosts, really be able to show them behaviorisms from baboons and hyenas and wolves and their ancient relatives, really break it down and show them also images, predator behaviorisms. I might be able to really bring out some stuff where they're like, wow, actually, that looks very similar to what we saw. That means I feel comfortable in the aspect of if it's physical and it is here, whether it's undocumented or was documented at some point in time, I do think that is coming into play as well. So I really tried to just make sure that the proper people gain access.
Yeah, and I think that's all any of us can do as researchers for any of these topics, whether it be Mothman, Bigfoot, whatever, is just we try to have the eyewitnesses draw what they've seen. Okay, and we only have like a couple drawings of the Dogman, and they were both up in the Shenango area. One almost kind of, you could even say it almost, I don't want to say it's like piggish, but it's kind of like, it does have kind of a snout, but it doesn't. It crossed the road up in Mercer County, and it's just, I believe, when if you can get out to an area, talk to the people, have them draw what they say. We have a pretty long form. We have like 45 some questions that we on our form, our long form, and if somebody's willing to fill that out and even draw, because you'll always hear, oh, well, we're not artists, we can't draw. You'd be surprised at some of these people, so quote, that can't draw. What a good job they do in drawing, describing what they've seen. So, but yeah, it's a weird topic. Like, I was first introduced to the topic, on Monster Quest. Linda Godfrey did one, and there was that hoax. That Mike Argusa or whatever his name was running in that suit, which at the time it looked really, really real. I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. You've probably seen that one. And but yeah, it's just, now when we first got into it, our first case was in 2007, and it was given to us by Jody Cook. So up until then, there was Linda Godfrey and Jody Cook, and like nobody else that was hardly doing it. And then we started doing it, me, Terry, and our friend, Fred Saluga. We would go to libraries and we would include it. We would include the Shenango Valley Dogman. We would include it. And people were like, wow, this stuff is really there. And then a lot of other people, I think got into it because they're like, wow, we don't want these guys to get all the thunder. We don't want these guys to be the only ones. So when we first started, people were laughing at it. They were like, oh, these guys, now they're going after werewolves. Uh-huh. And then when they seen that people are coming to us, and then all these shows are coming out about it, and it's like, well, we don't want to be left behind. We're going to start researching Dogman now. So it's funny.
Again, great stuff right there. And it's funny how that all unfolds as you mentioned. You were referring to the Gable film, which,
yes, that's what it was called. Yes.
Very interesting still to this day. People try to sell me on that, which I'm not sold on it because I've seen the film, saw the guy with the long hair drinking the Coca-Cola in there. I watched him get in a ghillie suit and run the same way that the supposed beast did, and the teeth come out of nowhere. I'm a former actor and model. I work at podcast here, which is what you're on, work with audio and video production, etc. Again, this is just my opinion. I'm not the end-all be-all, okay? That is very easily created. Why did he do a part two as well? There's just so much to that, which is humorous, and the aspect of people really fully wanting to push that around. Also, what you had mentioned earlier with people more or less dodging, saying, hey, this did occur, but no, I don't fully want to talk about it. I'm a little bit, I guess, harsher than you on those aspects because I know what people are about, how people can be shisty, people can be hustlers, unstable. Unfortunately, mental illness is a real thing that does occur. Okay, there's a lot going on here. They don't want you to come over. They're controlling the narrative, which means that at any point in time, they can say this is happening, which means everyone's got to take it at face value. But you can't take people at face value, unfortunately, because it's not a perfect world. If it was a perfect world and everyone told the truth all the time, then why are there horrible people that will look you in the face that are incarcerated and tell you that they didn't do what was proven that they did do? Same thing with like what our science team says. Cool, one track, right? Interesting. One photo, interesting. What happens before or after that, though? Did your trail camera just snap this one photo? Something had to have come before, and this one track. All right, well, what did this one-legged Dogman or Bigfoot or cryptid appear out of nowhere and then just vanish? So it just makes one footprint. There has to have been other footprints. What's the area look like? What's the terrain looking like? Is it hard? Is it soft? These are things that if you're not allowed over there yourself or your wife or our science team, etc., no one can really verify any of that. I've just learned, unfortunately, when people kind of are super guarded like that, it's red flags a ton of times just because I understand one thing about an alias. We're not talking about that, but you can have an alias and still have somebody come over and sit down with you or be allowed to look around and try to figure things out for you. All right. If you are the CEO of Nike or something, all right, and you don't want people to know that Johnny Chitlock, obviously it's a made up name, is who had this experience, then you come up with an alias. There's no reason that Johnny Chitlock still can't take you to the area that it occurred and really try to help you out as much as possible instead of being like, hey, I think this is occurring, but I'm not ready to talk about it. Come back and talk to me later. Or here, these are images, these are audio, but I don't want anyone to come over on my property, etc., because I feel like this is a special encounter or special action. I understand all of that, but I've just seen numerous times people claiming, per se, like this one guy said that his father got him a emotional support pet Dogman, that he built him claws, yes, and that this dog would protect him from the rake, the Mothman, and all of this stuff. This guy's spoken about this numerous times. Again, I am never one to mock mental health because I have dealt with plenty of issues like that. I deal with depression and anxiety, all kinds of things. But as you listen to this gentleman speak, he's off his dang rocker, man. I mean, the telltale signs of when you see the background of his living habitats, of also his, his appearance kind of where he just doesn't look like he takes care of himself. All of these signs that support someone should probably be sitting down and helping this person out because they are so delusional at this point that they're believing their delusions,
Yeah, exactly. And, you get a sense after you do, no matter what you're actually researching, either UFOs, ghosts, or whatever, you get a sense if someone, they do have issues, or they're not telling the truth, or they're misidentifying something. You can get a sense, especially if you can talk to them in person. That's the best. Sometimes that's not possible. Like some of our cases we get while we're at conferences, and they'll jot down a few things, and you call them and you'll talk with them, but you really can't do a big interview there because you're at your table. There's other people coming up. You're selling things. You maybe have a presentation to give, or so. Yeah, it can be all the paranormal can be very frustrating, actually. Not just Dogman. It's just the nature of people, actually.
You hit it right on the head right there. It is super frustrating, my friend, just because I like to be a realist about the topic. Again, I do personally believe Bigfoot is out there, and that's already been proven, so I don't even try to bring any more merit to that. And I do believe something is going on with what we've all spoken about this whole time: hyenas, dogman, whatever the term people want to use. All right. But I also do know that, especially this day and age, when people try to make the argument of, well, so and so has nothing to gain from that, that is incorrect, unfortunately, because you get put on shows like These Woods Are Haunted, which I've heard from some people that have been on shows like that. The embellishment aspect is encouraged by the writers, obviously, to make the encounters seem more tragic or mysterious. There you go. There's more than your 5 minutes of fame right there. There's podcasts that you can get up on and spread your nonsense. There's all kinds of reasonings why people, yes, would want to hope something now. But if you want to rewind back to time frames where being associated with anything cryptid or werewolves was super taboo, and you're talking about it, yeah, all right, you have nothing to gain off that besides someone being like, yeah, hey, the village idiot's back. Why don't we bring him back to where he belongs, you know?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
not just that, like when we had talked about the Monsters and Mysteries in America that I was on. Well, I talked to the producer, and I asked him, I says, hey, I got to ask you, are all these cases real? Because the stuff that I'm talking, like the Shenanigans Dog, I believe this is a real phenomenon. When you show all of these episodes, are they real? And he says, yeah, he goes, they're all based on on real cases, but what did he say? He goes, what was the exact term? We sensationalize a lot, is what he told me. He told me right out. He goes, we sensationalize a lot because it is a show, and we want to keep the ratings. And
Yes.
so here's a producer telling you, hey, we sensationalize a lot. I'm not saying that, Jim Brown didn't go out there and he saw Bigfoot briefly for 10 seconds, but did Jim Brown see a Bigfoot run into the woods, stalk him, start chasing him, throwing rocks at him, ran to his house, tried to break down his door? You see what I mean? That's a lot more exciting than like a lot of the cases we get where it's just, hey, somebody just sees something run across the road and that's it. Or see it in a field or see it, briefly, very, very briefly. And after a while, and I don't encourage that, believe me. That's why, like when when I did the Shenango Valley Dog Boy, I went into detail and I also gave them a conclusion I had. And I says, I believe this was a boy who had some malformities and he had hypertrichosis, which is, called werewolf syndrome where you have hair all over your body. I says, I don't think this is a werewolf boy. Is what they were trying to push it. Okay. So I gave them drawings of the dog, of the dog boy and the dog, and the end of the Shenango Valley werewolf. And I talked about the area and everything else. And I did one mistake on there. And I said, the lore of the Shenango Valley werewolf is there was a coven of witches, okay, that conjured up this dog boy to protect the land and protect the lake. Now, that is part of the legend up there, okay? That is part of the legend. And guess what they put in there in the show? That one sentence I said. They didn't
Yes.
say about anything I said about, I believe this is a boy with hypertrichosis. And I believe, he moved up to Erie where people saw him there. And, they actually knew what house he lived in and everything. And so I actually concluded our research on the Shenango Valley Dog Boy. We're still doing the dog, the Shenango Valley Werewolf, the bigger one. We're still researching that, but we haven't got anything for a while on that. So, yeah, it's kind of like, you don't want to hear the truth because the truth doesn't sell, I guess. But there was I think it was there was a cowboy movie. I don't know, it was a Legend of Vance or something like that, It says, when the legend becomes the truth, print the legend. What's that tell you?
Boom. Excellent stuff again, my friend. I just know how it is in regards of that. I always try to explain to people when you see something that is reality, well, it's not going to have directors, producers, and writers. Okay. Reality
Yes.
would be Brian and myself sitting down in his living room watching The Wolf of Snow Hollow or something. All right. That
Yes.
would be 100% a reality show from one of
Yeah.
our cell phones with no writers or anything. And we would just either be laughing, dropping a plate of food, yelling at each other, or etc. The big problem is also, like you had mentioned, everything is always going to be potentially embellished. That's why when something says based off of a true story, as we like start to wrap this up, this will make you chuckle. We all know The Beast of Bray Road, Linda Godfrey. Well, they did make a movie in around 2005 where
Yes.
I
Yes.
yes, before I totally shred it, I will say the gore was pretty messed up and gnarly,
Yeah.
but everything else about it, the way the werewolf looked, what occurred, no, there was nothing based off a true story off of that except for the fact that they used a place called Bray Road and
Exactly.
some sort of canine-like creature. In that movie, so many people got unalived, attacked, which, as far as I know, and Linda documented, there was no human fatalities in all of this. So that's what I
Hmm.
mean. Because you see something based off a true story, that is like what, 5% based off a true story?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how they get away with it. I mean, a lot of it's wordplay too, and I know like politicians do that. They'll say something, but they'll put a word in. One or two words can change a sentence, and politicians are great at that. Like the UAP phenomenon when uh, they had the first meeting, and they came out with a conclusion. And if you look down, there was like 7 or 8 things. 7 or 8 was other bin, and in that other bin, it says possible extraterrestrial. So they can come out and say, "Well, you never said that it could be extraterrestrial." We said, "Well, yeah. Did you look under the other bin?" We didn't say it was extraterrestrial, but in a way, we didn't say it wasn't, did we? They leave just enough, and there's a term for that too. And I got to find out the term because it's driving me crazy. One or two words will change a sentence. If you remember, what is it called? Independence Day, when they're on the plane. My favorite part. And uh, you knew all those years, but you said nothing. And then the president says to the one, I think it's Jeff Gold, why don't you tell? Why don't you tell us about that? And he goes, plausible deniability. And that's what a lot of this is.
Excellent right there. Yes, being vague is something that works a ton. Well, unfortunately, same thing with like your titles per se on YouTube. Obviously, my title is related to what it is I'm speaking about on my episode, but I also need to make it as a news headline or such a Twitter headline so that someone clicks on it. To an extent, everyone should be doing that. It's only clickbait if it has nothing to do with what you are putting in your title. Per se, when Jessica Jones and myself the other night were talking about baboon werewolves and werewolves in general, well, I made a thumbnail of her and I together, decked out in camo special ops gear that says "We hunt werewolves." Yes, we're talking about that the whole time, but it also is something that if a title pops up, hopefully it would intrigue somebody.
Yes.
Like I said, a catch 22, my friend. Well, is there anything else you'd like to touch base on tonight? Because you are an extremely busy guy and you got a wife waiting for you and other things to attend to as well.
No, that's probably about it. Just I will keep you in the loop like this time if we do end up talking to that eyewitness or any other eyewitnesses. The next time, I mean, I'll message you and then I could talk to you about it. But as of right now, that aspect of it is pretty slow. It's weird when we seem to get them. We seem to get a couple at a time and then not get any for a couple years. It's just weird how when we receive those. You know what I mean?
Funny how you said that because that is how my podcasts work out, my friend. I will plan on one a day, right? Or slash night. Then all of a sudden you have all these great people that hit you up. Next thing you know, you had 3 in one day. But you
Yep.
can't push that away because you have 3 great opportunities. You need opportunities to create content. I don't have hosts, I don't have content, etc.
Mhm.
Yeah, can't really complain. Same thing with are the emails that we filter through. Sometimes, you open it up, you got a whole ton of spam from all kinds of things, and then you only have 4 or 5 actual emails. Other times you have 25 actual
Yep.
emails.
Exactly.
Great stuff. Well, to the audience, this will be the conclusion of the meeting for the Midnight Society for the early hours of the morning. Brian Seech needs to get back to monster hunting. And luckily, myself, I am one of the good ones and I am on his side. So if you are interested to keep up with what Brian has been up to, the description will hold his links to where you can see the great aspects. Yet also check out Tubi and other platforms where Brian and I had mentioned he has been diving into live shows. Yet you can also go back to our playlist. He is listed in his own and also with the Small Town Monsters group. Yet until next time, stay safe out there and be good people. And Brian, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, man.
Oh, I had a great time. Thanks for asking me.
Ooh, you legends, you. I do adore every single one of you, and thank you for tuning in tonight. If you like my content, please share it, comment on it, subscribe, and feed the algorithm. I will catch you very soon.